Hey there, I'm Ben Frisch with Get Digital Support, here with another webinar. Today we are talking about getting the most out of Google Analytics. So specifically GA4 in 2024, that's all that's left. They've gotten rid of the original, the universal analytics, and now we are talking only about GA4, but this is a big improvement for Google, and it still can be a learning curve. There's a lot of things hidden. There's a lot of data and stuff that's kind of hard to find. So we're gonna dive into your GA4 property and kind of talk about the best way to get the most out of analytics, meaning where to find things that are really important to you and your business, and setting it up in a way that gives you the best data that you need. So moving right along though, first we want to talk about Get Digital Support. Just a quick background. We are based in Collingwood, Ontario, and here we are the local digital service squad. We've been the digital service squad since 2019. But we've only launched the brand Get Digital Support in 2020 as a place to put all of our resources that we've been creating, all of the educational content that we've been creating. We wanted to put it here instead of on one of our other websites, which I'll share in a second. But really, it's just a place to provide digital marketing resources, webinars, consulting services, and soon digital marketing courses to businesses everywhere. And as I mentioned, we do have other brands. So we started as BeFresh Media in 2015. And so BeFresh Marketing Group, as it is known, has grown into 3 different brands. BeFresh Media, of course, being a video production and content creation agency. So a place to go if you are looking for video or photography for your social media, for your website, that kind of thing. Get Digital Support, of course. We just talked about that. And then our newest brand is 20 Sharp, launched in 2024. And that is sort of our more traditional digital marketing agency for all things web design, ad account management, SEO, and those kind of services. So really, BeFresh Marketing Group being a full suite of services for your digital marketing needs. So if you need any help, you can reach out to us via any of those channels. It all kind of goes to the same place. So just let us know if there's anything we can help you with in terms of your digital marketing, content creation, or consulting, education content. We've got you covered. Moving right along to our agenda for today, we're going to be setting up Google Analytics. We're not going to necessarily set up a property per se, but I'm going to kind of walk you through some of those steps involved in that. With that comes linking to other services. So we'll touch on that, making GA4 your own. A lot of these sort of initial setup parts that we're going to be looking at will just be sort of in slides, but we are going to dive into the GA4 demo account, which is a live demo account where we get to see all of the data from Google's own merchant store. So that's pretty cool. We get to look at all of this live data and sort through it and learn about how we can use GA4, especially in this case, if we have an e-commerce store. There's a ton of information, but even if you don't, we're going to touch on different ways to get the most out of that data. And that's where, in section 4, we're going to talk about finding the information that you need and sorting it, diving into some of the kind of more finite areas and getting the most out of this data. So first thing we want to talk about real quick is setting up GA4. I'm kind of taking up some space here, so I'm going to just hide myself for a second. But when it comes to setting up your GA4 property, you're going to go to Google analytics.google.com, set up your account. Now, one thing to really always keep in mind when setting up any Google property, any Google tool, is you want to look at the top corner, to see which Google account you are logged in as. So you want to keep things consistent for your business so that everything is all connected. And you're not having to switch between different Google accounts to find a login for this or a login for that. So yeah, that's always a key consideration. Make sure you're also logged in as yourself and not someone else either, because that can happen and can end up with quite a few problems there. So once you go through the setup process, it is very straightforward. It's going to ask you a couple of different questions. Some of those questions too are even just their own statistical data about who's using Google Analytics. So don't necessarily worry too much about how you answer those questions. And also they will ask you other questions about your business that will sort of define how the layout is set up. But again, don't worry about that too much, because we can always change that. And we're going to talk about that in the demo account, or actually before we get to the demo account. But the main thing is, once we set up our property, we're going to get a measurement ID. That's this right up here in this corner. And yeah, this is just for the merchandise store, the Google merchandise store. So I was just wondering which one I was showing you here. And we're going to copy that. And usually, depending on your website system, if it's a Shopify store or Wix or Squarespace, one of those sort of out-of-the-box website builder platforms, there's usually a dialog box somewhere in your admin settings, your marketing settings, where you can paste that measurement ID right into it. If you have a WordPress website, I will say, there is a plugin called Google Site Kit, which makes it really easy to connect. So you basically, from your WordPress side, you're going to log in as your Google account once the property is all set up. Once you've logged in from that end, you'll be able to just select the property, and it will connect no problem. So it's called Google Site Kit if you're on a WordPress website. Or and I think the same goes for Shopify too. Now they have an app. It's called Google and YouTube, and it's the same approach where you log in as your Google account. It'll say, here's all the analytic profiles or analytics accounts that you have access to, and you just make sure you select the correct one, and away you go. And then once you have that up, it will take about 48 hours to connect potentially. But you can always come back to your admin data streams page. This is what we're looking at right here. To see, you'll see right here on this one, we get a green check mark. Data collection is active in the past 48 hours. So you will see a red bar with a notification that there's no data until it starts flowing. So, that's an indication that you've maybe not done something properly, or it just needs a little bit more time to connect. So there is also this setup assistant that can walk you through some additional items required. I definitely recommend coming in here, checking it out. So you go to your admin down in the bottom corner, and then setup assistant. And the reason is, they don't necessarily tell you to do these things, but they are somewhat important. So turning on Google Signals is the option to access aggregated data from people with Google accounts who allow ads personalization. So this is really important if you want to run Google Ads. And really, it's as simple as like checking an acknowledgement button, like a toggle to turn on Google Signals, and then an acknowledgement button. And you want to set up your conversions. We will talk about that. They are now called key events, so they still need to update the wording here. But so you want to just kind of click through these things and check them out. There's a couple of things there that can be fairly important. When it comes to product links, so as soon as we sort of set up our profile or our property in GA4, again, if we head down to the admin section here and we scroll down, there's a card called product links. And that's where we are able to link different Google properties from our Google ad accounts. So the reason why we want to do that is so that we can have the two accounts sharing data back and forth. So essentially, we're able to set up a conversion or a key event easily within Google Ads. So meaning if you run a retail store and on our Google Analytics account, we're tracking purchases as a key event, which is a default setup. We can easily tell our Google ad account that this purchase key event is considered a conversion. They still use the two words differently. They changed key events or changed conversions in analytics to key events, but they still refer to them as conversions on Google Ads. So sorry if that's somewhat confusing, but the same thing. So it's the end goal, what we're trying to get people to do, right? It's just a way of telling your Google ad account, this is what we want people to do. And it's as simple as just like a couple of clicks. Whereas before, setting up those conversion goals in your ad account was a lot more complicated and involved. And so by linking these accounts, we can really streamline that process, and we can get more data too out of our ads and ad performance. The other things that I really want to touch on, because not all of them would be relevant, but specifically, I did want to touch on Merchant Center as well. So if you, again, are a retail store and hopefully you've connected to Google Merchant Center, and if so, I recommend connecting this as well so that you'll get some data out of your Merchant Center account, and that way it's all in one place. You get some really good feedback and data on how people are interacting with those merchant listings. And then the last one is probably the most relevant for no matter what type of business that you're operating, is Search Console links. So Google Search Console, if you're not familiar with it, we touched on it in our SEO webinar, because it's definitely more of an SEO tool, but it's Google Search Console is giving us data on specifically like how we are performing in Google search. So basically, before people find us organically, what keywords are they searching for? How many impressions are we getting for that keyword? How many clicks are we getting for those different keywords? All that stuff that happens in Google before they get to your website. And so from an SEO perspective, this is really valuable information. And again, just really nice to be able to link those two accounts so that we can have all this info all in one place, so that we can just make better sense of it. Instead of jumping around between different platforms, we can see our Search Console reports right in Google Analytics, which is really sweet. And I will show you this in the demo account once we get there. I think they've connected those. So I did touch on the library a little bit, or I didn't mention what the library is. So library is a way of organizing the different reports that we are able to see. So what I mentioned earlier was during your setup process, Google's going to ask you some different questions about the type of business and your goals that you're looking for. And the reason why they do that is so they can sort of customize the reports that they put on your sort of dashboard screen for or your menu for your Google Analytics account. So that's where the library is important. So we've shown here it's down at the bottom of this menu, and it's where you can customize what reports are in this menu up here. So there's different options here in terms of like group sets of reports, and there's I think the other one that's not showing here is sales funnel or something similar like that, sales journey, something to that, or business objectives. That's what it is. So business objectives is more for usually for more retail, where it's more centered on e-commerce purchases and that sort of customer journey. But additionally, the life cycle sort of group of reports I really like as well, because it still has a lot of that information as well in terms of monetization. It'll show you your e-commerce purchases still. So each of these different sets has a lot of the same information, but it's just in a different sort of place or reported in a slightly different way. So you can either turn all of these on just by looking at there's the published button right there. So if some of them are hidden, it'll say unpublished. You can just toggle it on to publish them all or some, depending on your preference there. I would suggest probably for most people, the life cycle sort of group of reports is probably the best, where, as I said, it kind of gives you a lot of the audience data, like where they're coming from, how they're engaging with your audience, with your content, and then as well as the monetization. Are they making purchases? What products are they purchasing? All that good stuff, as well as retention. Are they coming back? And that kind of thing. So you do need admin permissions. So we're showing this again because from the GA4 demo account, we can't see that. We don't have the permissions, of course. So if you've created your Google property, you should be able to customize these. But the main thing is just making any changes to these will reflect in this menu on the left and just give you different reports that you can see. There is also the Explore section, which we won't necessarily touch on. It's pretty involved and complex, where most of the stuff we can get in terms of the data can be found in these different reports that are straight out of the box. So it is really important to talk about, I'm going to hide myself again so you can see this, but it's really important to talk about events and key events. So I touched on key events being sort of, traditionally they were known as conversions. And so that's really what you want people to do when they're on your website, what you and especially what you want to track most, right? So what we're looking at here is like a service-based business where they're not necessarily selling products or doing e-commerce purchases, but they're really concerned or interested in getting form submissions. So there's essentially over here we've got the events. These are all the events that are being tracked on this particular website. Everything from clicks to scrolling to video start, right? These are things that people will do or have done on the website. So it's still really important information, but then we can take it one step further and we can toggle this switch next to anyone that's really important. I clicked it as if it was the actual button. But so we want to toggle that on to mark those events as a key event, meaning this is what we consider to be, a conversion, a sort of key action that we want to track. What's really great is that with a lot of e-commerce websites now, especially Shopify, that the purchase, e-commerce purchase, it is a default key event, so you don't have to toggle it on. It's a key event by default, and Shopify will even send revenue data to Google Analytics. So not only do you see like how many purchases have been made, you can actually see how much revenue was generated from each of those purchases. And that's what's really cool that we're going to also look at when we get into the demo account, which is next. But the last thing I wanted to mention too about these events is that it is possible to modify and create events. So this does get a little bit technical, so I'll really kind of graze over it slightly. But the main thing is that I think, straight out of the box, you get a lot of key events, or excuse me, just events that are really useful. So it's not all the time that we need to add custom events. But the option is there. Like I said, it can get a little technical. Like sometimes we use Google Tag Manager as another sort of tool from Google to create these different events. And that can take some technical knowledge. It comes with a learning curve there. So definitely, it's something maybe talk to your web developer about, or reach out to us if you need to get help setting up some custom events. But again, it shouldn't necessarily be necessary, but it is an option if these events are, not giving you exactly what you need in terms of data tracking. And we're going to see too, the Google demo account has built theirs out with just a huge amount of custom events and lots of different key events. So it kind of gives you an idea. It will give you an idea of sort of what options are available. And I mean, yeah, we'll get into that in a sec. So before, here's where you will find Google's GA4 demo account. So it will be that link is available in where I think the way I usually find it is you just Google, type into Google's GA4 demo account, and it's within a support article. You'll find this link, but we'll have it. I think I'll put it in the description of this video, and and in our slide deck that we're going to send out to registrants for the webinar. But basically, yeah, just Google GA4 demo account, click through a support article, and you'll find that link in there. Right. So let's jump over to Google's demo account. So the first thing that we see when we get here is we're at the home screen. This is just our dashboard, of course. What's really cool, again, about this is that this is a live feed from Google's merchant website. So where they sell, branded sweatshirts and Google pens and all that stuff. And so that's where we can see, like live active users in the last 30 minutes. I just saw, look at that, it's ticking up. So apparently there's a good amount of traffic coming right now, although we did see a bit of a spike 24 minutes ago, 19 minutes ago. Wow, it's like, yeah, down in the minute. We're seeing some heavy spikes there. But also like where this active traffic is coming from. It's giving us some data on that. This first card, though, is looking at the last 7 days, and we can change that. Last 30 days, how much active users, key events. We can change these as well. Like so, to users, repeat purchases. There's like all kinds of active users, key events. This one's tracking, and just regular event count. So they've got 137,000 key events. Now, as I mentioned, their demo account is set up with a large number of key events. So like I like to have key events set up so it's just like purchases or lead generation, form submissions, that kind of thing, so that when you look at that number, you get an instant sense of like how we're doing. Okay, we've made 137 sales or whatever. But so when we show their event setup, you'll see it's really skewed. I don't really know why they do that. There's probably a good reason if they've got lots of different, custom reports they're looking at and different teams probably that they might be reporting to. They've got these different key events set up. So there's lots of different reasons why to do that, I guess. But for most small businesses, I'd say, keep it really simplified. But yeah, so just scrolling down here on this home screen, we've got, just some generalized information. Again, just looking at the last 7 days, where your sessions are coming from on this side, like from an online perspective. Are they coming direct, just typing in your URL through organic search? Unassigned is, we don't know necessarily. Email, that's a really good one to know. And, paid search, especially if you are running any campaigns, we can get a sense of what the traffic is like from those campaigns. And then alternatively, in this middle card, we can see, with a great little map here of geographically, where is that traffic coming from? And then items purchased by name. So we can even see what items are being purchased the most in the last. So Chrome Dino Holiday Lodge Mug received 207 sales in the last 7 days. That's looking pretty good. And we'll look at a little bit more of the some of the detailed reports on a lot of these things. But just so you get a sense of what's here on the dashboard and how we can kind of get a snapshot of what's going on. The other thing is, again, we can't set this up because it is a demo account, but there is a section for insights and recommendations. Definitely check this out because it's a way to, I mean, I encourage people to do it because it's a way to keep you engaged more so with your analytics data. Because sometimes you just set it up and you get caught up in your day-to-day operations, and you don't necessarily come back on a regular basis. But it's a really good thing to do. It's a good habit to have, to really understand how your marketing is performing, and everything for your business operations. And so by setting up insights, these are some automated ways of getting some insights and notifications about certain things happening within the analytics. So as an example, like I think I have one on my website where if there's a big spike in Canadian traffic to our website, then it will send me an email to say, hey, there's been an increase in, and I think I set it up for over 25%, week over week. So if it jumps up this week compared to last, I'll get a notification. And again, it's just a really good reminder to stay on top of it, to check in with that stuff, or especially if it's your traffic is dropped off. It can be an indication of, something's not working properly. Maybe something went down, whatever. So again, it's just a really good way to create that habit, checking in on your analytics on a regular basis with some insights and recommendations. So before I jump into some of the reports, I will just touch on the admin section again here, because we do get to see it in a little bit of detail. So when we go to admin, here's where we can find events. And like I said, they've got just an absolute ton of events. So, these are all grayed out, but because obviously it's a demo account, we can't make the changes to them, but we can see which ones are set up as key events. So, things like add to cart, right? Is a key event. Purchase, again, that one's by default, so you can't untoggle that one, but that's a really good key event to have. View item, that's probably why, that's why we're seeing when it said on that main report, there's 130,000 key events in the last 7 days. Item view item being a key event is really going to skew those numbers, because just anytime someone looks at an item on the website, that's going to trigger this key event. So again, not too sure why they've done that, because I don't love how it skews that number so wildly, but it's just the way they've chosen. Obviously, they know what they're doing, but again, I think from a small business perspective, you want to keep those key events to purchases, and that's about it. And then, I think that's all I wanted to say about that. Oh, from key events here, once we see that, we can also just look at the key events on their own. And so that's where we can see add to cart, purchase, and view item. So now let's take a look at some of the reports. So again, once we click on reports, we're going to hit the reports snapshot. So it's a dashboard that looks very similar to the home screen, but one thing to really keep in mind, especially anytime you come into your Google Analytics account, you do want to check on the date range, because this, can sort of mess you up more ways than one, in that, if you're not seeing the data that you're expecting, or you're seeing data that you think just changed and you're not sure why, it's probably because the date range is different, or it's reset to just the last 28 days, I believe, is like the sort of default. So yeah, when you're sort of trying to look back at, let's say we want to just look at November, we can just click on the date range there, or we can just select last month, I think is an option, maybe not. But yeah, it's really easy to just pick your date range there, either one of these set ones, or customize it. You can also compare. So if we wanted to compare this to the preceding period, preceding period would be, if we're looking at just November, it would be October, or same period last year, of course, would be November of 2023. I might just do that now just to show how that actually looks. And again, you can also punch in these dates manually if you want to, just type them in. A lot of different ways to kind of select your date ranges there. But once we hit apply, we're going to see how that looks. And we're going to see sort of indicated by these little percentage numbers and arrows, whether these numbers are going up or coming down when compared to last year. So that's really amazing, obviously, right? To see how we're comparing to our previous periods and our marketing efforts. Again, this dashboard, very similar to the home screen there, but now we do have the option to look at our custom date ranges there, and a couple other things here too. So another thing I want to touch on actually is another way to sort of compare. I'm going to turn this off just so it's not too complicated. So now we're just looking at November 1 to November 30th, 2024. We can add another comparison in here that is customized. So I've done this for my website because sometimes I do get a lot of like bot and spam traffic from other countries. Because I mean, just as a business service, like for BeFresh Media, of course, like we do video production. So we're we are 100% sort of focused on a localized audience, and therefore traffic from other countries doesn't really serve me. So here's where we can create a comparison and look at all the traffic and all these reports, taking just a sampling of the data, and we can cut out like only what we're looking for. And you can see from that list too, like there's all these different sort of dimensions that we can look at. But so if we wanted to just look at country, match type exactly matches, and I'm going to go Canada, and I'm going to then hit apply, and you can add more on top of that. Here's how that looks now. So we can see it's a different color, where this is all the traffic, and it's giving us a bit of a it's a bit hard to sort of gauge that Canadian traffic because it is pretty minuscule in comparison to the global traffic on this particular website. But now it's cool because we can see what percentage of active users are from Canada. In terms of that traffic from Canada, how are they finding us versus the rest of the world? And again, we can look at all these different reports, sort of dividing out or segmenting those different audiences or actions in different ways to get different data that we want. So I might just, and you can toggle this on and off. So just hit that and we're back to just looking at everything normally, essentially. So let's jump in here as well. So we're going to look at some of these other reports, which is where we can get into the meat and potatoes, if you will, of the data. So I'm going to go, again, the overview screens are all pretty much the same. And I do find them myself to be a little overwhelming, to be quite honest. It's hard to really kind of make sense of this, I find, because there's just so much going on. Whereas I like to jump into like user acquisition, for example. So this just gives us one chart to look at. And this is essentially where our users are coming from. So that is, where are they coming from? How do they find us? And those include, direct traffic. Again, that's just typing in the URL directly. Organic search, referral traffic. So that's traffic coming from a link on another website. Then we've got cross-network, paid search, and email. Then we've got unassigned, organic social, organic shopping, paid other. And something to keep in mind too. So there could also be other places. We also want to look at this rows per page. So sometimes, we want to make sure we're getting all of the information that's available. And yeah, because we can see there were 2 more that were sort of hidden because we're only looking at 10 out of 12. And you'll see that indicated up here as well. Here, sorry, I'm blocking these. I got to keep an eye on that. But what's really great about this is that, here, I'm going to hide myself just so I'm not blocking anymore. Any more data here. So here's where we can see where those users are coming from. And it's sorted by total users. We can see that indicated by this arrow right here, meaning the most users is how this list is numbered. But what's really cool is that we can see, we can see user key event rate as well. So meaning of all these users, how many are actually converting, taking an action that is considered a key event. And so we can sort by that instead. So that's really interesting and gives us a different kind of perspective on this data, because we can see, okay, organic shopping is giving us one of the highest user key event rate of 96.17%, which is insane. Email, of course, too, is giving us a really good rate there in terms of the traffic. The users coming in through email are very likely to take an action that's considered a key event. And that actually makes a lot of sense, because email is a really great tool in terms of connecting with engaged audiences and getting them to take action on your website. So another thing to consider when we look at these reports, because it took me a long time to figure this out too, in terms of this drop down here. So there's different ways that you can organize that user acquisition report. I tend to like first user source medium. Source medium meaning like the actual referral source, or the source that they came through, and then the medium being like what we were looking at before was the medium, but we get a little bit more detail as well in terms of the, you know, I think the medium before for paid search, now we're showing Google CPC. And so when we're running ads, this is a really important one to look at, because it's giving us all of the information about, how many people are coming through our advertising, and what are they doing? Are they spending time here? The average user is spending about 1:39. And if we look at that, I gotta scroll all the way down, but if we look at that user key event rate is at 39.93%. So not too bad. Certainly not our highest, but I mean, it's definitely providing us some return when it comes to just tracking those key events and the event rate for each of those users. So, when we talk about, I'm going to jump into engagement events as well. So similarly, we can see this report that is tracking all of those events that we looked at in terms of, the actions people are taking on our website. This can give us some more feedback on how engaged people are. Are they scrolling? Are they clicking on things? Are they searching around? It can just give us a lot of feedback on what actions people are taking on our website. I do want to spend more time, though, on e-commerce purchases, because this is a fantastic report, especially if you're running an e-commerce business like this one, like the Google Merchant account or whatever, merchandise store. Anyway, so as I was saying earlier too, getting this right here, item revenue, is amazing as well, right? Because we can start seeing, okay, not only are we getting a good engagement rate or even a good key event rate from our users, like what does that mean dollars and cents? Because you could get 100 people following through with a key event, but it might not actually be providing any return, in terms of money and monetary value. So this is really where I spend most of my time looking, especially for our e-commerce clients. Now, what we're seeing here is purchases by item name. So we can see all of the top products that are being sold. So again, this is just sorted by items viewed. We can look at items purchased. I think that's a really good one to look at as well. Because we can see what's our top seller, Google Pen White. So that's not a surprise. I mean, sold 2,081 of those. But if we look at the revenue, I mean, in terms of the $371,000 in revenue, it's pretty small. So we can also sort this in terms of what products are actually providing the highest amount of revenue in the same period. And that's our Dino Holiday Lodge sweater, with 402 sales, but sold $25,754 worth of those sweaters. And then we can, just see a really good snapshot of what are the top performing products from a revenue standpoint. And this can really help, guide our marketing in terms of let's promote some of those top selling products, so we can sell more of them, or what are some of our lesser sold products that we can focus on so we can, sell more of those, right? If we're got a surplus of inventory on something that's just not selling, let's, we can identify it from our analytics really quick, and then, put some marketing together for promoting that particular product. So there's a lot of different insights that we can take from this. Again, we want to just pull this drop down, make sure we're seeing, all of the data in terms of, or, flip through these different pages, however you like to kind of navigate that. I usually like to just do a big drop down just so it's all on one page. But there are, in this particular case, a lot of products. So 467 to be exact. So you might just find it's easier to flip through those pages. But again, from here, we've got a drop down. We can look at not only the item category. So right now we're looking at item name. We can also sort it by item category. So that's pretty awesome, right? Socks, televisors. I guess, yeah, there's some, is that French or some Spanish categories? It looks like they've not actually categorized a lot of their products. Shame on you, Google, not keeping up on that. But if you have, so Shopify is a great tool in that they allow you to categorize all these things. You would see all the different categories that you are selling. So it's a good way to kind of bulk all that data down, into just more generalized categories. Item variants, item brands. This should just be Google probably. Oh, there's a couple other brands that they are selling. But again, just getting some feedback on what are your top selling brands, categories of products. This is all really important information. The last thing I will do too is when we go back to here to look at item names, we can add which I didn't do on the other report, but we can add a second sort of dimension to this report to break it out. So this is one I like to do a lot. So when we are looking at our Google ad performance, we want to look at, so we're adding another dimension. We're going to select traffic source, cross-channel, and source medium. So this gives us still that item name, but then it also adds in where traffic is coming from, the different traffic sources that are purchasing these products. So now this gives us a huge amount of data, but what we can do is we can search here in order to sort of look at only what's important to us, or segment it out in terms of the data that we want. And in this particular case, so I mentioned Google advertising. So we're going to search for Google. You have to type it out exactly as it's shown, which is odd, but Google/CPC, that was the source medium that we want to look at. I'm going to hit enter. So now this shows us all of the sales that came from their Google advertising, which is pretty amazing, right? So again, we can see that their advertising alone brought in $18,760 in revenue. And we can sort this in all the different ways, again, to look at what are the top selling products from a revenue standpoint, which is a little bit different, right, from what we saw in that sort of generalized list, which is great information to have, right, from our advertising perspective. I think before we saw the sweater was the top seller, but now we're seeing the Dino brick set is the top seller from a revenue standpoint. And so, that could spark some inspiration there if we wanted to run ads for maybe the sweater instead, or maybe look at, what are some of these products that are selling, or what are some of the products that are not selling, and how can we enhance the advertising to improve our performance. Like, one really good way to look at that too is, we can look at some from a viewer standpoint. So what are some of the products that are being viewed a lot but are not selling very much? So this one is an interesting one. So the YouTube icon patch, been viewed 146 times but only made one sale in the last 30 days. So that could be, maybe there's an opportunity there. I mean, I don't know what that icon patch is. Something like this might be better, like this Google Dartmouth quilted jacket, right? Again, viewed 128 times. 3 people added it to their cart, but no one purchased it. So what do we need to do from a marketing standpoint to increase those sales? Because we know we're getting traffic. We know we're getting some interest in that product. Maybe we can, run a promotion on it, put a custom ad towards that quilted jacket. There's a lot of different options, a lot of different ways that we can sort of approach that. But it's all about just pulling out this info from our data in order to make better decisions, right? And then, I'll just sort of graze over some of these as well. The purchase journey, like, I don't necessarily use a lot of these too much because I find those other reports are, give us a ton of data. But essentially, this is showing us like sort of our active users, how many people are going from just being an active user all the way down to purchasers, and a little bit of info and intel on how that journey is sort of flowing. Lastly, I'm going to touch on Search Console, because I talked about making that link between your Search Console account and your Google Analytics account, and why that is really important. And so in this one, the data is going to be obviously very skewed. And the reason is because most of their traffic, from what I can tell, is Google employees and Google managers buying stuff for their teams. So because if I were to look at I've done this a bunch of times, and so I know that when we look at the traffic sources by country, or by city, it's always where the highest ones are always where all of the Google headquarters are located, or their locations are. So in that sense, that's why as well, the highest traffic source is also coming from direct. That's not most websites. Most websites, people are finding you organically. People are finding you, via social and search and stuff like that. So that's how I know this audience is primarily Google employees, because they just know where they're going. They just type it in to get there and to buy the swag that they're buying for their team or whatever. So all that to say, this report is skewed in that way, where what we're seeing is, people are searching for, Google Cloud certified merchandise. Although that's a good one, right? Because, we can see, they're searching for Google merchandise. and that's a very applicable search term. So, so this is important because, we can see how many clicks that term has gotten over the last 30 days and how many impressions it's getting. So here's a really interesting one too, because we can, if we sort it by impressions, can we sort? Yeah. It won't let me. There it is. When we sort by impressions, that means how many times it showed up in search. This Google Merchandise Store is getting 7,401 impressions. Now it is a slightly low click-through rate, meaning, out of that 7,000, only 26 people clicked through that. But the real important thing about that is that, there's an opportunity there where we can, work on trying to improve that click-through rate, whether that's through advertising, through SEO. There's definitely some improvement to be made. I mean, my speculation would be that this also pulls up their organic, either maybe they're clicking through some other source or link that is on the page at the same time. I'm not sure why that would be so low, but as you can see, there's lots of different opportunities here in terms of how we can improve our performance in Google search. We can also look at country where people are searching in Google for the Google Merchant Store, and it's pretty amazing. So without going on too long, because I could probably go forever, that is essentially our Google GA4 webinar for you. So I hope you found this useful, helpful. There's a lot of different ways to, as you can see, to look at that data, to analyze it and segment it, divide it up, and look at different angles for things. So just keep, playing with those settings, those dimensions, and see what information you can get from your Google Analytics. And if you have any questions or need help, you can always reach out to us at Get Digital Support. And be sure to check out some of our upcoming webinars, resources, and digital marketing courses coming soon to getdigitalsupport.ca. And we hope to see you at the next one. Bye for now.